What's up, everybody? So today's video, we are going to put our sport bikes to the test. We got the 2007 Yamaha R6 versus the 2007 Honda CBR600rr.
So in today's video, we're not going to go too far into the details of each bikes. You can check out those videos in the description below. We're really just going to go over like the daily driving aspects of them and really compare our horsepower and torque numbers just to kind of see how they're different and how they're similar.
Just basically the street use of the bikes, comparing them on the street, non-professional riders, just enthusiasts checking out the bikes.
So to start off with the engine specs of both bikes, the R6 has 125 horsepower where the Honda only has 118 horsepower, and then the Honda has 48 pound-feet of torque, whereas the R6 only has 43 pound-feet of torque.
So now let's check out some real-world testing of the actual horsepower and torque differences between the bikes.
Alright, so now we are going to test the straight line performance of these bikes. We're going to be doing a second gear rolling start. That is impressive. So I got him just a little bit off the line, and his bike, he started to pull just a little bit. Wow, very, very comparable.
So here he goes on the CBR, testing out the wheelies. So strictly using the torque of the bike and the gearing to get a wheelie going. All right, on to the R6. So as you guys saw in the performance testing, the R6's more horsepower is pretty obvious. Once you hit a certain RPM, I think 12 to 14,000, it just takes off compared to the Honda. So real world testing, driving this on the street, and of course if you're on the track, higher RPM, it takes off compared to the Honda. Honda, however, that little bit more torque,
that's what's able to get that front wheel easily off the ground. You have a lot more work on the R6 if you don't use the clutch, which we just, to make the testing fair, we were doing the power wheelies, so.
And then,
it's some
don't
work.
make fun of driver skill. I mean, both of us trying, it's just, it will not do it based on the gearing and the power, but the torque in the Honda,
yeah,
night and day, you can do it all day long. All right, guys, so we are now on to the R6 following the CBR. So we're gonna go over the handling and the braking of the bike. So like most 600s, it's a very tossable bike. I feel like the lean in is really good. You can easily pinpoint it. The steering is pretty heavy feeling. I mean, I can easily point the bike, lean it over. Very direct feeling. The brakes, I would say, are pretty good. I really have no complaints there. The bike easily just rocks back and forth. And from what I've seen, the R6 is definitely the very track-focused bike of the batch. So handling, very sharp going around some turns. It seems pretty solid when you're leaning a little bit farther. Then as we get going up the hill, the throttle delivery, very linear. The bike seems really planted. I mean, overall the handling, you really can't go wrong. It's probably going to be very similar to the CBR, but it's a nimble bike. It's easy to throw around. The turning, super sharp. The brakes do a really good job, and honestly, really no complaints there. So now he's got the R6. He'll be in front, hopping on to the Honda. I don't have too much experience riding this bike. Obviously, I'm dailying that one, but this is definitely a much different bike. We'll go ahead and check it out. So he'll talk more about seating position in the next segment, but that is much different. All right, going into the first turn. I can tell the center of gravity is a little bit lower feeling in this. I wouldn't say it's better or worse. It's definitely different. It does feel like the Yamaha is a little bit easier to pinpoint. I just feel like it rocks like side to side a hint better. So I think the weight transfer is definitely different between the two. It's a little easier on the R6. But the low end torque, I do feel a little bit more in this. After a few turns on the Honda, it feels just a little bit heavier when you're trying to rock it back and forth. But in the lower RPM, there's a little bit more torque to pull you out of it. The braking is a little bit touchier on this bike. That could, of course, just be adjustments, though. But I feel like the R6 is just slightly more nimble. But, I mean, we're talking really minimal differences here. Of course, this isn't track or anything crazy. This is just a little windy road, but both really nimble bikes. I prefer this one. It is my own bike, of course, but hard to complain with this one. So anyways, let's go on to the next segment.
All right, so now it's time to go over the whole seating position of each bike. So I'm starting off on my bike, the CBR, and I have a lot of highway miles put on this bike, so I'm very comfortable with the bike. But as far as the overall seating position, the seat is very flat. It seems a lot more level, which is nice. I don't feel like I'm straddling the seat. It's not too thick on the top of it. And then as far as my knees go, I am pretty bent, and you'll see when I hop on the R6 what I mean by that. My knees are very bent, so I do have to go out and stretch sometimes when I'm on a long ride. And then going over the handlebar positions, they feel a lot taller, and again comparing to Bry's bike there, but they feel a lot higher. There's definitely a big gap between the fairings here. So overall the riding position is very upright, but it is a comfortable ride. You know, I don't feel like I'm too hunched over or anything like that. It's very comfortable. It's not as track focused as that bike is, but overall the seating position is very comfortable. Let's hop onto the R6. All right, so hopping onto the R6 now. Oh, we got a car behind us. Let's go. So already I feel a lot higher on the seat. It definitely angles towards the back of it, so you're right up against the tank. Anytime you're putting on the brakes or things like that, you slide right up to the tank. It's also a lot wider at the base of it, so my legs feel a little wider apart. And then as far as my knees being bent, they're not as bent as the CBR, which is nice. You know, you don't have to stretch out your leg or anything as much. It's definitely more comfortable on the legs. I just don't think it's as comfortable on the seat just because I feel so upright. But obviously you'd get more comfortable as you ride it more. And then as far as the handlebars, they do feel a lot lower. So compared to my bike, there's less of a gap between the fairing there. But as far as the overall seating position, I do feel more comfortable on my bike, obviously, because I have ridden that a lot more. But this bike is a lot more higher up on the seat, I feel like, with the lower handlebars. It's just more track oriented for you to lean down and to race it a little bit more. My bike is still comfortable, you know, this one is still comfortable. They're just designed a little bit differently. So now it's time to just do a quick exhaust clip of each bike. Obviously they both have aftermarket, so it's not stock versus stock, but let's go ahead and rev up the R6.
So we have a mid-pipe, no cat, and then the GYTR slip-on tailpipe.
CBR has a full Two Brothers exhaust system on it, stock mid-pipe on this bike. And to finish up, we're just going to go over some of the design aspects that make each bike unique and different from each other. My bike has kind of what did you say, like thicker fairings on the side? Yeah, he has more sleek.
It kind of all blends into one over the gas tank, so it's got a lot more body plastics, I would say.
Yeah, and his bike is a little more sleek. Everything is kind of more thinned out.
You got more exposed areas where you can see the engine and the radiator, and then this is divided where the gas tank is.
And actually we figured out when we take our gas tanks off,
yeah, they're a lot different.
They're a lot different. His is connected up front.
You take, I think it was this off for the air filter, and then the whole gas tank actually rocks back.
Yep,
while the Honda, you have to take the whole plastic off.
This is a individual shell piece that you take off.
So the design's different. The handlebar setup, obviously the driving is a little bit different. And then if we look at the gauges on the Honda, it's a little bit different than the Yamaha. You have a gas gauge, which is pretty helpful. You know, center tach, speedometer, and all your other information. And then back on the Yamaha, this is a little bit different. You have a rev light, a shift light, which again, this bike is more for the track, so that's something you're gonna want. A larger tach, actually, your speedometer over here. And then there's no gas gauge, but I just reset my trip A every time, and you know, I know how many miles I gotta go on it. Rear end wise, the one thing that I've always liked when this generation R6 came out, the little tiny exhaust, I thought was pretty cool. I had the Yamaha GYTR one, that's their performance one, and it does have a mid-pipe on it. So this is a little bit more minimalistic down here. It's very sleek here. I have the passenger pegs removed just to make it nice and sleek. The Honda, the single exit is really cool. It sounds a lot different as the driver because it's right behind you versus down on one side.
You don't get as much of a drone with it directly behind you.
Yeah, it's a little farther back. A little bit more plastics here because of this, and then the Honda has less storage space actually.
Yeah.
I get more space in the Yamaha because there's no exhaust there. But
I like the look of having it out the center. Obviously, he likes it on the side, so that's again a different preference.
Is less sharp looking. It's more just flowing, I would say. The Yamaha is a little bit sharper, more aggressive. Just it all goes into the track focused Yamaha version of it. So Yamaha aggressive, more track focused. This a little bit sleeker, a little bit different. Well, there you go, everybody. That is us kind of comparing the R6 to the 600. Overall, they're really good 600cc bikes. We have friends with the other competitors, and you really can't go wrong. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to personal riding preference. Which one do you find the most comfortable to sit on and ride? Because you're gonna have the bike, you're gonna be on it riding it, so you gotta know how it is in the comfort aspects. Performance-wise, they're both pretty darn quick, I think.
Yeah, and it was good 07 versus 07, so we have the same generation basically.
So I'd say the biggest difference that we found, the wheeling, I cannot wheelie to save my life on the Yamaha. I know you might rip me apart for that, but it doesn't wheelie the same way the Honda does.
I couldn't get it off, so.
But I like the fact that the higher RPM, it just takes off, so that is fun to have that extra horsepower. Both of these bikes we bought used just under the $5,000 mark with about 12,000 miles. So if you're looking for a 600, I would put your budget at $5,000. And then we do both have all the proper riding gear. That's another $1,000. So for $6 grand, you can get a fun bike that just, for us, we've been riding dirt bikes our whole lives, and having a motorcycle, a sport bike especially, is the way to go, and they're just tons of fun.
We ride them all the time as much as we can. It's 30 degrees out today and we're out riding them.
Yeah.
A little cold, but it's all part of the fun.
So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully if you guys are out looking for a 600cc sport bike, hopefully you can have a pretty good opinion on what bike to get. We have each driven the 250s and 300cc, the starter sport bikes. For us, with riding dirt bikes growing up, they were slower than our 250 dirt bikes. So for us, that was just not an option. I think these are still a good beginner bike. I really do.
Yeah, they're a little heavy for someone who's never been on a bike before. So if you want to try, the 250 or 300, it's definitely a good starter bike. But if you're comfortable with the weight, after sitting on one, it is a good beginner bike. You can't go wrong.
Yep.
And it's something to grow into.
And if you don't get higher in the RPM, if you stay under 10K, it's not that fast. You really got to ring them out to go crazy fast. So
Which is something you work on.
Yeah. So it's all, just work your way up. But anyway, that is the review of the two bikes. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a huge thumbs up. Smash the subscribe button. We'll see you all next video.